everyone, wherever you are listening from. You are here today on I Pledge Against All Vices, and this is dedicated to the youth. It is important today we open a discussion that is going to be very helpful to us, to our generation to come, because what is very important today to know is that we have a responsibility to our youth. And Youth Against Social Vices is one step towards helping the youth, helping the future, and helping them make the right choices. Now, social vices, we all know, are things that can destroy, that have the potential to destroy our youth. It destroys their talent, their health, the opportunities they have, and it will destroy all of this before they even start life. And we all know that the youth are the backbone of national development. No nation will rise higher than the character of its young people. And discipline today creates leadership tomorrow. So discipline is fundamental. And the habits formed now decide who leads this country later. So these are some of the key issues we are going to be discussing so that we get to know what we expect. Now, we will be focused more in the Gambia, but then we will know that what we say can transcend beyond the borders of this country. A nation holds a choice. A youth nation holds a much bigger choice, but there is no guarantee because we all have a youthful nation, in Africa in particular. In the Gambia, it has one of the youngest populations on the continent. That is our greatest asset, but it is also our greatest risk. For example, let us look at the democratic dividend. Oh, sorry, to be more precise, demographic dividend. We had this youth energy, which is well guided, which becomes growth, innovation, and national strength. Or we can have what we call a demographic burden, which is a youth left to be idle, to be undisciplined, to get into crime, addiction, and lost decades of their lives. So the deciding factor is that they need to mold their character, they need to build their skills, they need to make the right choices, and nothing else will decide which future we get other than that. So let's first start with alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse has a great cost to the youth. One, it impairs judgment, decisions you would never make sober. Once you get drunk, certainly you cannot make the decisions that are right for you. You will certainly get into the kind of life that would be very devastating. And certainly alcohol has other serious dangerous effects on the youth, such as accidents, violence, and illness. There were many accidents I can remember on the new highway, the Bertil Harding Highway, which is now called the OIC Highway, when it was just being constructed. The number of vehicles that have caught fire on the road because young people will drive very fast in the middle of the night when help is very difficult to mobilize. And most certainly, they would have been drunk by then because they would come from nightclubs and other parties. And these accidents have created loss of life of people who could potentially have been very, very important to this country. And violence, I don't need to tell you, we've been reporting violence throughout this year, almost so frequently that we are getting much worried. And what is really been of concern is that the kind of violence we are witnessing now is really leading to murder, to the death of people, innocent people, and other innocent youth. And certainly, alcohol can cause illness. It can destroy the liver. People can live with this kind of illness, and certainly they will not have long life. So what is important is that alcohol abuse should not be a priority in any youth. They should completely leave it. But there are other effects too. It can damage someone's education and family and reputation. Education, certainly, but let's look at family. There are a lot of families where people who are really into alcohol, depending on the level of abuse, they would be violent, but they would also not be able to raise families properly. and the reputation. So sobriety is what we call the strength. It is very important that our youth are sober and they are serious. Now, we do not only have to be contented with some of these facts. We have to understand that the kind of alcohol now being sold in most of the mini markets, especially mini markets where people can easily come buy alcohol without having to present an ID card to show their age. It is becoming very alarming. You have a lot of mini markets that are providing alcohol almost for free because they have it in small quantities and people will come and buy anytime they want, and these are youths. So we need to put in strategies to see how best that can be protected, but we will get to that. Let's come to smoking and shisha. You see, shisha is something that everybody thinks is not harmful, but shisha is really harmful because one session of shisha is not even one cigarette. It's more than just one cigarette. And we are now seeing that potential youth group in almost most of these restaurants that offer shisha for these young people to smoke at will. Tobacco smoking has become a style. The tobacco industry has done everything it can to ensure that the youth are connected to cigarettes. What they do is they have a way of really marketing this. They have a way of popularizing it. They even have a way of making it appealing by creating tobacco that you will see, sometimes slim tobacco, sometimes one with a little bit of fragrance, a little bit of taste here and there. But the bottom line is tobacco destroys one's health because tobacco contains nicotine, it contains tar, and these things get into the lungs, destroy the lungs, damage the heart, and destroys one's future. Do not inhale what steals your breath is the message. And by the way, we are talking about smokers, but what about the passive ones? If you are smoking within an environment and you're a heavy smoker and you have family members, a wife, a husband, children, and you smoke very often, especially within a confined area, what happens is that all those people become passive smokers. And the danger with passive smokers is that they inhale a lot of smoke, involuntarily. Because you are puffing out the smoke, but for them, they're inhaling them. And this is also one very great danger for passive smokers. So smoking and shisha is not a style. It is a damage to life, a damage to health, a damage to the future of our youth. And the third problem or abuse is the drug. Drug abuse has started to grow and is becoming rampant, especially among our youthful population. And what we don't understand is that addiction destroys what we call self-control. People who get addicted can't control themselves. They are into a kind of a hallucination, a fantasy world. They are not in the real world. And naturally, they are not afraid to do certain things, including being violent, including doing crime. And naturally, for these people, they cannot, get their good results. Their brain is completely damaged. When they are in school, they will fail. And they will leave school very easily because they will now start leading a kind of life that is not adapted to school. They will lead a kind of life that is not adapted to work. And that would really ultimately cause a mental breakdown. So drug abuse, especially when you start hearing drugs like kush, you can say marijuana has been here, but even there, it's not an excuse. But you have kush, you have these tablets that people swallow, whatever they are. Once people take things that are substances that would eventually damage your health, damage your mind, take you out of reality, and bring you into what we call a dream world, you are really out of this world. And this is literal, meaning that you will lose your health, you will lose your future, you will lose your wealth, you will lose your friends, you will lose your family, and eventually the dealers will profit while the youth will suffer. So drugs promise escape but create chains. Sometimes we believe that when you take drugs, you are escaping from what we call a world that is not helpful at all, because you are frustrated, you are depressed, So you say, okay, drugs can be a way of escaping all of that, but it's just temporarily suspending the problem. It is not going to help. Now we come to the fourth problem that is becoming very, very rampant today: irresponsible sexual behavior. Now, this can be considered a way of life, certainly, because we have been indoctrinated to believe so from our Western form of education, from our movies, from our soap operas, from the exposure we have on the internet and other social media. We see men wearing clothes that kind of reveal their bodies. We see women putting on clothes that reveal their bodies, which is leading to what we call infatuations, some kind of attractions that are fatal to their lives, to their future. And what we don't know is that irresponsible sexual behavior can lead to infections. We have HIV, it is still here. We have the STDs, what we call the sexually transmitted diseases, gonorrhea, syphilis, and others. But it can also lead to unwanted pregnancy and emotional harm. You have young people, irresponsible, naive, they get into such behaviors. If you are a young girl, you see yourself getting pregnant, and what next? Maybe your future is completely damaged. You are in stress. Some people would probably not even maybe deliver properly. Who knows? And they might lose their lives just because of an irresponsible act. So this breaks trust also in families and marriages, because irresponsible sexual behavior can create problems where families who have been solid, who have built honor in the society, can find dishonor because a child, be it a girl child or male child, has done some act that has potentially left the family in dishonor. We can destroy marriages too. So boys and girls must both be held responsible. Sometimes when we girls get pregnant, we blame the girl, we don't blame the boys, but they must all be held responsible. I think laws must be put to allow the men to also suffer as much as the girl will suffer, even as more than what the girl will suffer. Because I always believe that it's a two-way thing. You cannot blame one party for being irresponsible when the other party goes scot-free, because they will continue to do the same thing. So desire must be governed by dignity. One has to remember that when you become a youth, becomes a leader tomorrow. When they lead a nation, when they lead in certain places, sometimes this past will come to haunt you. And it can come to haunt all of us. I mean, none of us is excluded in this. But what we need to learn is that we don't have to make the mistakes of those who have been there before. So it is time for most of you to repair your lives, to straighten your lives, to avoid irresponsibility, to avoid promiscuity, to avoid doing habits, drinking, smoking, going out at night. I'm not saying you don't go out. Just last night I went around and I found a lot of youthful boys and girls wearing scanty clothes moving around town. Yes, it might look like a style, but it has its own consequences. But you see, we need to ask ourselves, we too, the society, why these youth fall into vices? We have to understand the roots, because if you don't understand it, we cannot stop it. The first problem is peer pressure. Sometimes these youth, they get into gangs, into VOOs, into groups. And this group, you find influential among them, people who drink, who smoke, who love to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And then, they see that as a style. And naturally, those who join, who are new, who probably would not have loved to do that in any different circumstance, now see themselves being pulled in to start getting those habits. So peer pressure could be one major problem. So curiosity could be a second one. Curiosity, because you are curious to test the waters, You might have been watching a movie, you have an actor who you love a lot, and he's smoking a kind of cigarette, and you can buy it in the shop. So you go and buy and hide and smoke. You go and do it a second time, you cough because your lungs don't want to reject it. You cough. And then next time you do it again, you cough. And the same thing will continue. And as it continues, it starts settling in, it starts becoming a habit, and you start loving it. Now, the danger is when you start loving it, it becomes a kind of a habit. And to get out of it becomes a bigger problem. And the other things is unemployment and idleness. You see, we have something in the Gambia we need to talk about. We have in the Gambia where many, many youths are idle. They sit in the streets, they drink attire, they talk about bundas. I want to go to the USA, to Birmingham, to Amsterdam, using extraordinary names of cities beyond reach. And naturally, what they do if they are unemployed and idle is that they also think that, what next? There's no future for them in the Gambia. They want to go away because when they go to Europe, they can make it very, very fast and all that. So they start now getting involved with other people who have already sold away their souls to all these vices. And as a result, they start smoking, they start taking drugs, and it becomes a frustration. Every day they are being reminded that, yeah, you cannot amount to anything. You are useless, you are this, you are that, which is not true. Which is not true. There's abundance here. Unemployment can't exist in this country. And I believe that there's a lot of potential for the youth. There's a lot of work. If you pick and choose when you don't have, that's a problem. If you don't have skills, it's a problem. So you need to reorganize yourself. And there is no work that is unworthy of being done. There are people who started selling, ice in the streets, young girls, young boys who started selling mangoes for their families, bananas and all that. And they turned out to be director generals because they did that slowly while they're getting educated. That's what their society needed at the time, but they became responsible. Now, the fourth order problem is poor role models. If you have role models of people who are not naturally the top of the cream, meaning they don't nurture the good habits, the good character, the kind of personality that should be the best among in the society. If it is the type of people who have no issues with drinking, with smoking, with taking drugs, with associating with women all the time, naturally those role models are not going to help. If you watch Nigerian movies, you find one there who always boasts about getting the girls. You look at an American movie, someone boasting about smoking, cigarette while shooting people, something like that. So you start getting falling in love with that character, and those become your role models. They are not the good role models. Some people will not even want to take a religious leader as a role model because they say, Kimum Serila, he's a religious guy. But role models must be chosen wisely. You must choose the kind of role model that is going to influence your life for the better. That is what we call a good role model, not the poor role models that are just going to inculcate or lead you to be getting into the kind of habits that are not going to be helpful. Now, we also have what we call the social media influence. Some of you are so, I would say, so connected to the social media, so much so that whatever you see there, you think it's like the Bible or the Quran is true. And some of these social media have a way of influencing you, be it the pictures, be it the videos, be it the text that you read, and then the algorithm will come to identify what kind of thing you like. And naturally, if you keep bringing more of that, if you keep scrolling and watching nudity, movies that are not, really good for your character and all that, yeah, it will start bringing it because that's what you want. That's what you have chosen to watch. And it will bring more of that because that's how it studies your habits, how it studies your behavior, and it responds to what you need. And naturally, it will bring you more of that. You get more attached to that, and then you then never know how it ends. And the sixth and last part, possible reason, possible cause, is lack of guidance. There are a lot of youths here. They are not being guided properly. The schools are not guiding them. The families are not guiding them. The society is not guiding them. So they are kind of abandoned. They are seen to be on their own. And if they feel abandoned, naturally what happens is that they would also feel that they could do anything they want. There's nothing wrong with what they want to do. So what we need to do is to help them. We need to help them, be it the home, the school, the society. So what families and schools must do, and that's where I will focus on at the moment, is that they are the first line of defense for the child, the home and the classroom. For the home, for example, we have to start teaching early our children before the street teaches them. We have to teach them how to be responsible. We have to teach them what are the vices in life, the kind of character they should be molded into. I know if you go to probably some of the villages, or for some of us who've had that kind of childhood, we used to be given a lot of stories, Lebon Dupen, Talin Dima, Tali Talate, in all languages. All of us had it. Now, unfortunately, maybe the younger generation now don't have it. But these stories had a way of inculcating values in us, teaching us the bad and the good, how to be honest, how to be generous, and that how wicked is going to end up paying bad, etc. All these are indispensable in the teaching of the child, and they only start at home. And we should also remember that we have to start listening to our children without condemning them. We have to keep listening to them because they come home or they start observing things, they start seeing things that are not probably the best for them. And we have to also set clear boundaries and keep those boundaries. Do they have to be watching social media at home? Do they have to be watching too much TV? What are the kinds of things they watch on TV? What do they have access to telephones, etc., etc.? These boundaries must be clearly defined. And also, we must teach them to know how to make their beds, how to sweep the home, because these things, even if you call them gender roles, segregated gender roles, it doesn't matter. You can even have a boy to sweep, to clean the dishes, to help the mom when she is cooking. And a lady can be also taught to be doing certain things within the house so that all of them get to have the experiences. But all these things are important. And we need to find out what are the friends and the habits of our children. As I said, peer pressure is can come very early towards the child. So who are the type of friends they have? Who do they associate with? Who do they socialize with? Are these friends from good families, from well-to-do families? Are these friends well brought up? Do they have vices too? What are the kind of habits the children are beginning to nurture? How they are learning those things? So we family at home, we should be responsible to look through all of that. And the second thing is the school. How about the school? The schools provides real counseling, not punishment alone. We all know that the children now spend a lot of time at school. Initially, when we were children, we only go there up to 2 o'clock and we go home. Now children are in school up to 4 o'clock, up to 5 o'clock. Some parents can't even come to collect their children even after they finish classes. They are still loitering around within the school premises up to around 4 o'clock. When they finish work, that's the time they come and collect them. Some families would prefer staying with the children. I mean, letting the children in certain centers where they could be cared for until they finish, maybe between 4 and 5. By the time the children is home, he or she is completely exhausted. But then the school must be a good school, must be a well-chosen school where it will provide real counseling and not punishment alone. And schools should also encourage certain activities like career clubs, sports, reading and arts, run skills programs with practical value that could occupy the child, that could make them engage, that could make them creative, that could keep making them learn and make character education count as much as marks. So even if they build up a good character, the children should be rewarded for it. Like a well brought up child, a child who is always serious in the school, who doesn't bully others, who is always moving around, helping, and then doing homework on time, etc. These children must also be given the kind of attention and also one reward that they deserve. So a child guided at home rarely needs rescuing on the streets. Otherwise, what we families will see, we start seeing our children in the streets, and what will happen? So they will start doing things that we do not like. And the next thing they know, they're into petty crime. The next thing you know, they're into drugs. And the next thing you know, they are arrested, and then a different kind of life begins for them. And we should avoid this. But apart from the school and the family, what can government and communities also do to help our youth? Guidance without structure will not hold. So there must be kind of laws, environment, whatever, that is going to help the youth to grow. Number one, for example, just a few, to enforce laws. So written laws mean nothing when it is not enforced. So all these laws must be enforced. If youth are caught with drugs, or even going around, let's say Senegambia, and find most of these there must be enough security forces to see that the youths are not into unacceptable laws. Now, yes, we have a country today which is religious. We cannot deny it, even if we call it a secular country. But majority, if not everybody, is religious here. We are either Muslims or we are Christians, and all these religions have taught something fundamental, which they all agree on, is that good character will not allow promiscuity. It will not allow abuse of alcohol, abuse of drugs, and even misbehavior. So if they agree on this, why are we allowing this? Why are we allowing our youth to go to nightclubs where they're going to start nurturing habits that are not acceptable? Why are we? There's no freedom like that, and that kind of freedom doesn't exist. You know, yes, if you want to create something for the tourists and all that, maybe that's another story. But you have to prohibit youth from getting access to those environments. That's how we are also going to salvage our future, salvage our leaders. The second thing is to control sales to minors. I mentioned about these mini markets that are selling alcohol. I remember at some point they were prohibited from selling this alcohol made into small plastics that were so accessible that with $10 you could get almost about 33 or 30 centiliters of of alcohol that one can go and drink, you know. So this is very dangerous. And then you have to also monitor corners, you know, strange corners where people can buy drugs. So no child should buy what harms them. We shouldn't accept it. And point number three is to support rehabilitation. Many of our youth are already into it. They need to be helped. They need to be rehabilitated. Because we also know that the withdrawal stage for people who want to leave drugs is very, very difficult. For people who want to leave cigarettes, it's very, very painful. For people who are already into alcohol, it's very, very painful. So to rehabilitate them, to bringing them back to society, some people probably are willing and ready to be helped, but we don't have rehabilitation centers. The only things we have, the only thing we have is what we call punishment centers, and they are not going to help. So we don't have to punish the trade or recover the person. That should be the mantra. And the fourth is fund youth centers. I know the Minister of Youth and Sports have been investing a lot into sports, and I think also into mini stadiums around the country. And I remember when I was myself permanent secretary, the idea of having an all-rounder youth center with what we call indoor games and skills development, a host of things like that. This is necessary to fill the vacuum, to provide to prevent idleness and fill this vacuum that we are living. Because most of the youths who are unemployed, who are idle, are prone to get into activities that are not of their good interest. And therefore, to help them, we need to provide these kinds of centers across the country. At least in every region, in every big city, there must be a youth center where the youth can come and, you know, a bit, and you have some people who are there who will volunteer or even employed to guide them, to support them. And this leads us to the point number 5, where you can create what we call fund skills training, where you have employable youth who are protected. Because when youth have skills, they are employed and they are protected. So we have skill centers also, which will allow some skills to be given to these youths. It could be a short-term training where they could have a skill on a particular thing to do. Let's say, for example, if there is this construction of roads are going on, you develop some of the skills of the youth so that they can help in the measurement of the roads, you know, in identifying certain spaces, in helping in the laying of structures, in even driving some of the machinery, etc. As long as they are engaged, the youth are not unemployed. And as long as they are not unemployed, they are not idle. So there is the potential for them not to get into involved into some of these vices. And the last here also is to protect schools. The schools must be protected from drugs, from predators, from the gates. They must be protected from all forms of vices. Then we must help the youth so that they are not, they are not getting even the peer pressure, in peer influence in the schools must be verified, and then make sure that that kind of peer pressure does not push the child into promiscuity, on unwarranted sexual behavior, etc. Now, what is these responsibilities for the youth? No one can make these choices for you. If you are a youth and you are listening, we cannot make these choices. The first choice you should do is you have to choose your friends. There must be good friends. If you don't have good friends, naturally what you are going to end up having are people who are going to influence you into bad habits, and you will end up getting these bad habits. You will regret them, but it will be too late. The second thing is say no early. Say no to drugs. Say no to unwarranted, unaccepted sex. Say no to alcohol. Say no to cigarettes or shisha. Say no to all of these things. They are tempting. They are tempting, but they are not good. They will end up destroying you completely. But you should also respect yourself and respect others. I always say that if you don't respect yourself, if you don't love your body, if you don't love yourself, if you don't love your body enough to deprive yourself from these pleasures that are just more dangerous, but they are what we call momentary pleasures, but lasting damage. If you don't respect yourself enough to protect your body, protect your soul, protect your mind, then you cannot respect others. There's no way you can do that. So you have to respect yourself by stopping everything that can potentially destroy yourself, destroy your health, so that tomorrow you stand with dignity, you stand with respect. You are not known to be a drunkard, you are not known to be a drug addict. That is going to destroy your future. Even if you want to change, it might probably haunt you. So why not don't you start respecting yourself now and respect others? And the fourth thing is to learn a skill. It doesn't matter what. Most of us had other skills that we didn't end up doing. Many of me, those who know me when I was a much younger person, I have been at some point conducting programs on radio. But today I'm not working in a radio anymore. I'm teaching. I'm into other things. And yet I was even teaching at the time. I've also done a lot of other activities. Some people will be coaching football, but later will become professors of universities. Our choices in life is not always permanent. They can mutate, they can change, but always equip yourself with a skill. That's the guarantee. When you have a skill, you have a guarantee that you can always revert back to those skills to be able to get a job, to live a decent life, a respectable life, and be respected. But also don't forget to serve the community. Lead by example. Serve the community. You have to be the person who will always want to be generous, to be there to help. It's not always about getting the money. It's also about helping to make sure the community is clean, the community is good, the free of drugs, free of alcohol, free of all those bad vices, those bad habits. And as I said, lead by example. Lead by example, you nurture those habits, you be that person, then you can lead by example. We are almost at the end now. Let me just start by encouraging every youth who is listening to me that you must make a pledge. You must make a pledge. If you listen to this, make a pledge. You will say, I pledge to protect my body. I pledge to protect my mind. I pledge to protect my future. I pledge to protect my body, mind, and future. I reject alcohol, drugs, shisha, smoking, and destructive behavior. I reject alcohol, drugs, smoking, shisha, and destructive behavior. I choose discipline, dignity, knowledge, and service. I choose discipline, dignity, knowledge, and service. Before I end this program, let us all remember that we have the social media and we can do a lot of things with the social media. But we have to be very careful because the social media is not always something that we will want to encourage. Because you see, the social media has a lot of dangerous things there. It's like when you get into a big forest, you want to hunt, but there are wild animals that can kill you. When you are not protected, you are not careful, you are not doing what is required, you will end up probably being attacked. So we should be very careful. The future is not inherited, it is built. That is my last sentence. The future is not inherited, it is built. So you need to know that you need to prepare your future now. You have to make sure you have a dignified life, a dignified character, a dignified trajectory, and grow up to be a respectable person. Yes, a lot of people would say that, yes, there are others who have gone the wrong way, who have done the wrong things. They turn out to be good. Yes, that could be 1 in a million. That could be 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000. But we still have problems. So this is what we should avoid. Now, we will just take a pause and see if there are any questions or anybody who will wish to ask a question or two. You are free to ask those questions. We have very, very few minutes with you, and we can answer 1 or 2 questions before we close. So if you have any questions and you are live with us, you can ask questions before we close the discussions today. As for those who have just joined us a while ago, we are discussing about the youth against vices, all the vices that could potentially destroy the youth, such as drugs, alcohol, smoking and shisha, and also unwarranted sexual behavior. So these are some of the vices we have been engaged to discuss on. We are hoping that many of you will learn from this video, for those who have been live and those who will watch it later. And we expect to come back again to discuss more on other issues that affect our society in general, affect our youth, our young boys, young girls, and affect our society also, be it nationally or internationally. We are here to serve you, to help you, to share the little knowledge we have, to ensure that you benefit fully. Thank you very much. Without any questions, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.